Hey everyone, welcome back to the second video on our series on creating a Cybersecurity Homelab. In the previous video I showed you guys how to install and configure Kali Linux, and in this video we'll be taking our setup to the next level by using Whonix-Gateway to route all of our network traffic from our Kali machine through the Tor network. This will seriously increase the security and privacy of our environment, and this can be also very useful for like journalists or people that live in areas where censorship is a problem. With that in mind, I will also be showing you guys how to set up Tor bridges for obfuscation in case your internet service provider tries to block your access to Tor. That's also my case. My ISP will block any Tor traffic if I'm not using bridges. So I'll show you guys how to set that up as well. So Whonix is a free and open source Linux distribution focused on privacy and security, and it routes all traffic through the Tor network. You can see it uses a hardened version of Debian. To install it, we can come to whonix.org and come to downloads. Actually, let's go to this VirtualBox option since our home lab is being set up in VirtualBox. And here you have the option to choose between the GUI and the CLI versions. The GUI comes with XFCE graphical user interface, but for our purposes we need to use the XFace version because the CLI version unfortunately does not support bridges yet. So that's why I couldn't set it up on the CLI version. You can see here on the documentation it's not available on Whonix-Gateway CLI. We can only use setup dist there, and that does not support bridges. So let's go for the GUI version. You can download it. You can see it's an OVA file. This might take a while as well to download, so I have already pre-downloaded it. Similar to our Kali Linux image, this is the entire virtual machine, but this is packaged in a OVA file. You can think of it like a zip archive that has all of our virtual machine files. I'm gonna come here to VirtualBox, click on File, Import Appliance, and then we can search for that OVA file. Okay, so we can hit Next. It will show a preview of what it will do, how it will set up. You can hit Finish and then agree with the licenses. And let's wait for it to import. This might take a little while, but it's not that long. Okay, you can see it created two virtual machines here, Whonix-Gateway and Whonix Workstation. You can think of Whonix-Gateway as our kind of our router in this internal network that we're creating for routing the Tor traffic, and the Whonix Workstation is the machine that you use to actually browse the internet. This Whonix Workstation will connect to the Whonix-Gateway and use it as a tunnel to access the Tor network, and we'll set up Kali Linux to do the same thing that Whonix Workstation does. So before we boot this up, you can change the configurations here. You'll see by default it has 3 cores of processing. So if you have a quad core machine, you'll need to lower this because otherwise when you boot up both of them, the sum of cores will be higher than what your host machine has, and that can cause serious problems on your machine. So here you can come to the configurations, system, processor, and lower it a notch. I'm gonna do that for both machines. And let's boot up Whonix-Gateway for the first time. It's a pretty minimal machine, so it will boot up quickly. You see it has no wallpaper and not anything here. You cannot even access the internet because it's blocked on the gateway machine. You can only access the internet on the workstation machine. But if you look here on the top right corner, there's like this sort of lock icon. We can click that to show Tor status. You can see Tor is running. And if we go to Tor control panel, you can see where it's at. This will never find a relay for me because of my ISP. So what we can do is click on configure, change the bridges type to OBFS4. That will enable obfuscation by using Tor bridges, and that's the only way I'm able to access the Tor network you might need to do the same. Okay, so here we can see Tor status connected to the Tor network. That is good. Here we can see like the onion circuits that it's doing. We can request a new identity if we want. We can check the logs, but I'm interested in looking at the network configuration here. So we can open the terminal. I made it a little bigger so that you guys can see. If we type ifconfig, we can see our internal network here. We have two interfaces. The one that's relevant to us is this ETH one, where we have the IP address of this Whonix-Gateway machine and the net mask. These two values will be very important when we are setting up the connection in Kali Linux to route our traffic through this Whonix-Gateway. Like I mentioned, this will be treated sort of as our router machine. So this will be the gateway IP that we need to set up in Kali Linux for it to use the Tor network. Alright, let's also boot up the Whonix workstation just so you guys can see and set it up. If you are not planning on using this, just using Kali, you can delete this machine, but I like to leave both of them. This one I would use just to browse the internet, just to use the Tor browser, and Kali is for any red team activities that we might need, right? So here is for internet browsing, and it is a full Debian system. You can configure it for whatever reason you want. If you're a journalist or if you're doing some research or anything, you can set it up however you like. Here you'll see that the default user is called user and it has no password. We can open the terminal here and set the password if we want. You can see it's doing a system check because it's the first time that we boot it up. So for changing the password, we have to do passwd, the same command that we use on Kali. Okay, so it did not work. I forgot that this has some differences in the access control. To change the password for this user, we actually need to do sudo passwd and then the name of the user, which is user. Now this will update the password successfully. We can also test the web browser here. We have this icon on the top left. And here we can go to check.torproject.org to see if we're connected to Tor. And here you'll see that it's working. I'm not gonna spend more time here. I'll just show you guys that I have config that our network is the same network, the same internal network as the Whonix-Gateway. You can see it's the same IP range. We just have the IP with the last digits 11 instead of 10. 10 is the gateway, 11 is this Whonix workstation. So let's power this off and do some configurations in Kali Linux. Okay, so here in our VirtualBox we can select the Kali machine, go to configurations. I'm actually gonna first rename this to just Kali Linux, and then we can come to network. And you can see we have the first adapter here. This is a regular network adapter. And on the second adapter, we can enable it and select internal network. Here we'll see the Whonix network as an option. If we select this machine will have the second adapter, which is like if it's plugged with an Ethernet cord to the same network that Whonix is on. Again, we'll treat this Whonix-Gateway as the router for that network. So let's boot the Kali Linux machine up and do some configuration here. Okay, here we are. Let's wait for it to load up. You can see that I changed the wallpaper here. You can get this old legacy Kali wallpapers by running sudo apt install Kali wallpapers legacy. This will get all of the previous versions of Kali's wallpapers, including when it was called Backtrack. If you didn't know, Kali was called Backtrack before. But here you can see that the network connection is loading. Let's right click and go to edit connections. And you can see we have two connections. This first one And let's edit it, and let's change the name to host machine network. This is just so that we can figure out which connection is which. Here you can see it's set to connect automatically. I'm gonna leave it like that because I want it to default to the regular connection, and if I want, I can switch to the Tor network on demand. So I'm gonna save this one and click the other one, which is our Whonix-Gateway connection, like the one that's on the same internal network as Whonix. So let's call this Tor network. And here in general, in the general tab, we can disable the connect automatically. And here in the IPv4 settings, we need to change the IP assignment method from DHCP, which is automatic, to manual. And we'll create an address here that's within the address range of the Whonix network. And we'll set the Whonix machine as the gateway. Let's do that right now. 10.152.152.12. I'm gonna use this number because 10 is the Whonix gateway, 11 is the Whonix workstation, and this one will be 12. The net mask we can see also in the Whonix gateway machine. Here we have 255.255.192.0. Let's set that up on Kali as well. 255.255.192.0. And the gateway, like I said, we are treating our Whonix gateway as our router. So here we should put the address of our Whonix gateway machine, which is 10.152.152.10. Again, you can just check it in the Whonix gateway with ifconfig if you don't need to remember these IP addresses. And then here for the DNS servers, we'll also put the same address from the Whonix gateway machine, because that's what we'll use to do domain name resolution, so that we can find .onion websites as well. So we can save this and close this configuration wizard. You can see that it's working now. If we click here, you can see it's connected to our host machine network and not to the Tor network. Before we connect to Tor network, let's do a quick test here. Let's open Firefox and go to that same website that we opened in Whonix workstation, check.torproject.org. And you see we're not connected to the Tor network at the moment. It's showing my real public IP address here. But if we click here on our connections list and disconnect from the host machine network and connect to the Tor network, you can wait for a couple seconds and refresh this page. And tada, now we're connected to Tor. So we can also do another check, which is dnsleaktest.com. And this should show where it thinks our IP is from. So it thinks we're in Netherlands, which is not correct. So it's working. One final step here to unleash the full power of this setup is to change configuration here in Firefox. So we can open about config and it will give us a warning. Let's accept the risk and continue. And there's a configuration called network dns.block.onion, and you can see that it's set to false on mine because I have already disabled it, but it defaults to true, so we cannot open any .onion websites. Firefox will block it by default, so we can just set it to false. And let's try opening the New York Times onion address. Okay, so we'll see this potential security warning. Let's just click on advanced, accept the risk and continue. Firefox will do everything it can to stop us from opening .onion websites. But here we have it. You can now use this as if it was the Tor browser. I do not recommend you browse .onion websites through this. You should use the Whonix workstation to browse the internet. And this Tor connection is just so that our tools here will use the Tor networks. So any traffic coming from our machine, be it an Nmap scan or anything like that, that will go through the Tor network before reaching the target. Thanks for watching this video, it means a lot to me, and I hope to see you on the next one. Bye.